Good morning.
Thank you for. You want to shake my hand? I'm sitting there doing like this. Okay. We are here with Miss Bobbi Denais, and she has agreed to give us an interview to use for our Youngsville Historical Preservation Society.
Yes.
And Miss Bobbi, how long have you lived in Youngsville?
I've lived in Youngsville since 1955. That's the year I married my husband.
Okay.
And moved to Youngsville in May of 1955.
And you lived on 2nd Street?
I lived on the corner of 2nd Street and Avenue B.
And that was your mother-in-law's?
That was my mother-in-law's home. It was actually her mother and father's home to start out with, the Guillots.
Okay.
She was a Guillot. And Jerry and Olive was her mother and daddy. And
So
they built that house, and of course in those days there were no architects, so it was just one room slammed against another room and another room and another room. Nothing was planned. But when she and my father-in-law were married, they fixed it up, so to speak. And they lived there with my husband Lucas and his brother Marcus.
Okay.
So when I married Lucas, we moved in the same house with his parents and his brother.
So his parents were alive when y'all moved in the house?
Oh,
You lived
yes.
with his parents?
Very much so, yes, absolutely.
So you can go back to his grandparents then?
Yes, the
As-
Guillot house.
They built that house?
They built that house, absolutely.
Do you recall what year or?
Oh my God, no, they've been dead for, I guess, almost 100 years.
Wow. Okay,
That's
right.
an old home, one of the oldest in Youngsville. Now, it's been remodeled many times.
Mhm.
But basically, it's an old home built on pillars, solid floors, solid walls, all very well built.
So what we see as downtown Youngsville now, with all the homes back there, I imagine when y'all moved in, there probably weren't that many. Were there that many homes downtown?
Oh no, when I moved to Youngsville, there was only the old Youngsville part, which is now what we call the old part of Youngsville.
Right.
That's all there was. There were no subdivisions, there were no homes outside the city limits. It was all fields, sugarcane fields to be exact. And people did, we had farmers, that's what they did. And there might have been 600 people in Youngsville when I moved here.
That's something.
Yeah.
And so, do you recall the grocery stores, the churches, what the businesses?
St. Anne's Church, which is the church we were married in, is still there today.
Mhm.
Still the same St. Anne's Church. The big 2-story home by the church,
Okay.
that was the duplex Vigorous store. It was the post office and a general merchandise store. You could buy hip boots, you could buy shoes, you could buy...
That's the home next to Morhav's?
Yes.
That was a store?
Yes,
Oh.
right. Exactly right. That was the store and the post office.
Okay.
Yes. Main Street didn't consist of that much. U.B. Landry, who was one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in Youngsville at that time, owned a bar on the main street.
Okay.
And when I moved there, they still had the hitching posts in front of the bar
Nice.
for the guys that were still on horseback or still in buggies. So, and of course, women didn't go in the bars.
Really?
They sat outside in a car. Their husbands would go in and bring their drinks outside, and they would sit and gossip while the husbands were in the bar.
And what were the husbands doing in the bar?
Drinking, playing
just
pool,
playing pool
playing
and
cards.
playing cards?
Yeah,
Okay.
gambling.
Do you remember the name of that bar, or was it just the bar?
It was U.B. Landry's bar.
Oh, U.B.
That's all I
Landry.
can remember.
Like they say.
And next door to that, Mr. Broussard, whose son is Father Rex Broussard now. I think he's at St. Basil or St. Basil's Church, whatever. He had an ice house
and ran an ice house. People without refrigerators would go buy a big box of ice
Nice. Yeah.
to keep their milk and whatnot cool, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know there's.
And then Morval's, excuse me, where Morval's is today, not the part where the dancing and everything is, the original Morval's bar was across the street where that used to be a funeral home and
Yes,
something else.
yes.
Well, it
The
was
bank
across the street,
Okay.
and Mr. Morval, Nell Vallo's dad, he owned that, and he and his wife Gertrude lived in the big Morval house next door, that big brown two-story house.
Yeah.
Well, that's where they lived, and that's where Nell and her brother Bud and her brother Harris were raised,
Okay.
in that whole home.
So they moved the building across. They moved Morvan's building across the street. Is that what you're saying?
It was originally there when I
Okay,
moved to
okay.
Youngsville, and there again, the women didn't go in there.
Okay.
They sat outside in the car, and the husbands brought the drinks to them.
That's
And again,
something.
they gambled. They played cards at Morval's.
Right. So y'all would just sit out in the cars and
I
gossip.
wouldn't.
Uh-huh.
But the women, I was younger than these women. I was a newlywed, so
Okay.
I didn't participate in that. No.
Well, I say gossip. I didn't even say gossip. Like just visit out. They would just visit outside. And
Yeah, they'd visit outside of the cars.
So
That's right.
When did they start letting the women in the bars? Do you?
Not too many years after that.
Yeah.
Not too many years after that. Because then women's rights came into the picture, and this and that happened, and things progressed as they're still doing today.
Right.
And so it wasn't too long afterwards that the women went in. Yeah.
Because I know that we've all spent a lot of time in Morvan's. That's where most of the parties are. I know you still attend the Friday
Every
nights.
Friday
don't you?
night I'm there.
That's what I
Absolutely.
thought. Now, getting to Mr. Denais, your husband, how long were y'all here when he first ran for mayor?
When he first ran, we were just newly married. I was married at 18, he was 19. He ran for
19.
town councilman,
Okay.
and he won.
At 19.
Yes. And he remained town councilman for quite a few years under Mr. Gallette, who was the mayor at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Gallette, I don't know if he fell sick or he had surgery and a pig valve installed, and anyway, when he retired, my husband was appointed as mayor. And he was mayor of Youngsville for 4 terms, 16 years. He ran unopposed for 4 terms.
That's great. That's
As
incredible.
a matter of fact, he built the city hall that's there today.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
And he was his job was, he was a supervisor for South Central Bell
mhm.
and retired with 40 years service for South Central
Right.
Bell.
Now,
Excuse me.
when he first served on the council, do you recall how many councilmen there were?
3.
3. Okay.
3 councilmen. Him and 2 others.
Okay.
In fact, Lola David's husband, Fan, was one of the council members.
Was he?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
June Thibodeau was another
Oh,
one.
really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, I know we have a lot of information on his service, and he's
Yeah.
I know he built Youngsville from this to this.
Yeah.
So, and now.
He was instrumental in getting sewage into Youngsville,
Mhm.
water plant, several other important things, that he
Right.
did.
Right.
And I was gonna say, when I moved to Youngsville, there wasn't a street in town that was paved. It was all dirt streets or gravel streets. Nothing so, and no garages. So if your car is parked outside in the dirt street, and it rained a lot, you were lucky to move your car